Okay. So, okay, welcome everybody. So, my name is Dr. Lee. So, today I would like to share with you about my research title about advancing tacit knowledge, Malaysia family SMEs in manufacturing. So, this is my PhD studies that about family business in Malaysia. So, okay, at first, we need to prepare tools in dealing with family business because a family business is quite secrecy in Malaysia. So in order to get enough tools, we need to navigate the good research on family business with right resources. So I have a few resources, few references about Chinese business in Malaysia written by my supervisor, Professor Edmund Terence Gomez, to tell us how to identify the development milestone and growth strategies among the Chinese family business in Malaysia that can evolve into the large corporations. So the theory is it debunking the theories that large corporations owned by the Chinese capital, they can't innovate well. But this book, The Chinese Business in Malaysia, they gave me a lot of insight knowledge about the development of the Chinese business in Malaysia. So the second resources is from the Alfred Chandler. And he was a business historian. And then I keep impressed with his philosophy about structures, follow strategy. If you have a good structures, then you can follow the strategy implementations to manage your business well. So his books also writing a lot of ideas about the Americans manufacturing firms, the managerial revolutions. So he did point up about the invisible hand to help this American business to evolve well. So we can't only depends on the invisible market, the free markets, and the the free markets and the competition, but we need to look inside the internal organization structure also in order to advance the knowledge in 3Ms, the marketing, management, and manufacturing, to coordinate better in the administrations department in order to enhance the better development of these small firms into the large firms. So the third one is we are using the knowledge spiral model written by the Nolaka and Takuchi. It's about how to transform the tacit knowledge to the explicit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is mostly the family business experience. For example, if you want to do the business, if you want to pass the knowledge to the next generation, you will go through the series of the stages in order to make it more explicit, to share among the organizations. Okay. Then the last resources is I have getting a lot of insider knowledge about R&D investment, about knowledge management from the Family Business Review. So these are the main items, main references that I used to follow during my research. So the key themes in my research, so basically just like I was mentioned, we have a tacit knowledge. Okay, the thematic focus for my research, we have a tacit knowledge, how the informal knowledge, the working experience, they codify into the personal experience. For example, the tacit knowledge is during the first generation, usually the apprenticeship, hands-on experience, how they pass the knowledge to the next generation in order to survive. So most probably, if you see in the most longevity firms in the whole world, Japanese firms, the Kongo Gumi, they are building the Buddhist temples with art and architecture design. Their founded is 5, 7, 8 centuries ago. So they're followed by the Hot Spring Hotel, Honshi Ocean. So dated from the 1,300 centuries ago. And the third one is a Chateau de Golin. So it's the largest wine family firms in Paris. So if you see properly, this kind of family firms in the world, how they can survive from one generation to another. Because the English literature, the British proverb, you always say, close to close in 3 generations. Even they say that family business, they cannot last until the 3rd generation. So the generational change is a hot topic for us to identify what kind of pros, what kind of cons when they're going to delegate the knowledge or delegate the jobs to the next generation family business in order to manage the business well. So the second theme is generational change, and the third one is the innovations. So if you look for the family business review, we found out a lot of research we consider like frequently see in the family business review, that is like wealth inheritance, business successions planning, but innovations we hardly to find. But slowly in this coming century, we can know that the innovation papers is getting more explicit in the family business review. So you know the importance in order to sustain this kind of family business. Knowledge innovation is very important. So, okay, let me share with you about my new research paper about SECI model. Knowledge, how the family business, they create their knowledge from tacit to codified. So as the first one, you can see the tacit to tacit. They are during the 1st generation of the family business. Usually they are go through the socializations environment. That means that at first they preserve reality as it is. So during these 1st generations, the founder usually they will uh, pass on their knowledge to their workers or else to the next generations by using hands-on experience, apprenticeship, or we call it like industrial trainings during the first. So usually the interpersonal relationship between people, between the superior and the subordinates is very strong during this stage. Okay, tacit to tacit. So when it comes to the tacit to explicit, it's the most difficult part, because you imagine you need to codify the tacit knowledge into the coding procedures. That means the coding procedure, that means is you want to put it into the protocol, or else the system, or else the how to say the whole entire administration system in the family business. That is the most difficult part for the family business. And mostly this happen in the 2nd generations, because in order you need to ensure everybody to know what is going on in your organization, the first thing is you need to translate the tacit knowledge into the better concept. Okay, the third one is from the explicit to explicit, explicit to explicit. That means from the codified to the codified. How does it mean? This is widely practiced in the West, but in the East, we still have a we still have a difficulties in combining the explicit knowledge to the explicit knowledge in the organization by editing and systemizing the explicit knowledge, because we have a tools, but we don't know how to effectively utilize it. So that is our problem in most of the Asian business, especially in Malaysia as well. So when you come to the last stage, if you have a tools, okay, if you have a system, if you have a better managed organizations, how are you going to codify the explicit knowledge to tacit knowledge? That means the tacit knowledge is you create the experience, there's a sense of belongings. Okay, for example, the company's reputation, the company trust. So this is also the most difficult part for the family business. So you need to learning and acquiring the new tacit knowledge. That means you create another form of new tacit knowledge in order to sustain your family business. So just now I mentioned to you the few most longevity firms in the world. So Japanese firms that is more interested country that we can survive. You say data for the 5, 9, 5, 7, 8 centuries and 1,300 centuries, even up to the 46 generations. So that is interesting things for us to look through, to put a focus lens. How this kind of a family business they can sustain over the long run. But I did study the family firms, the family business secrecy. They are very appreciative to the traditions, to their own tradition, the Japanese tradition. For example, the hot spring hotel that I mentioned to you, the temples with architectural design, this kind of traditional knowledge, they are very appreciative. That's why they can capture the uh, uh, an opportunity for those Tacit knowledge that inherited from one generation to another. So just that I think I was mentioning very well about the problems of knowledge transformation. Actually, knowledge transformation is not easy. Especially men like us, we know more, but we hardly to explain. For example, we know how to sell the product, how to how to learn from each and other one, but we can't explain. We can't explain it well to the public. Okay, knowledge codifying. So the codifying knowledge considered as a long-term investment. If you want to sustain your business from one generation to another, so based on the tips raised up from the Alfred Chandler, the business historian say, you must develop the good strategies followed by the structures. So you can see nowadays the large corporations their own a lot of departments. For example, the marketing departments, the production departments, these kind of things, and they're trying to merge it. They're trying to merge it, and they need to eliminate the hierarchical management structures to more horizontal organization or vertical organization in the family enterprise. You know why? Because if you eliminate from the hierarchical organization structure, you can put it into the more advancement in the flow of ideas. That means more ideas will be coming in to improve the family business, even the operations, even the growth strategy. So some of the researchers also mentioned the large scale enterprise, they are more likely to perform innovativeness compared with small firms because of a firm size, industrial types, and the response to the R&D. Actually, if you see properly, Malaysian small scale enterprise, they are more responsive. They can know, they can respond it well because the business is owned by the family members, and then they are with a less the whole organization itself with a very less how to say the workers, the staff. So they are not much to the hierarchical organizations. So the family involvement, the family participations, actually they can manage the business well from the one generation to another in order to respond or adapt to the government policies. I can see that the small scale enterprise they can perform it well. When I was conducting my research in I did contact some of the semiconductor firms, the purchaser, okay, the managers, and then the engineers. I asked, what is the impression of you about these kinds of small firms? They say they are very highly responsive, okay, and then they are also sending on time, and then they can change it whatever requirements that we need. So another body of literature has noted that certain family-owned enterprises are more efficient. That I mentioned before, they are more efficient access to new technology. So the family business is defined as a single governed on generational basis. Actually, there are many definitions about the family business, but the most important part is family business is a total system associating with the founding entrepreneur or the family members. So in the US, we can see the family business contribute half of the country's GDP. So you see the US brand, even the wine companies, even in the West, we have like IKEA, owned by the Kampra family. IKEA, they also consider the family business as well, the family brand. You know the instant soup, instant soup. Also, they are owned by the American investors. Okay, LV bags, LV bags and Prada. This kind of the good designing brands also owned by the family business. So you can see they contributed about 60 to 70% the GDP in US. Not only in US but in France also. Okay, in the France, the 57% are the family provenance. So the global entrepreneurship monitor study in 2002, they even indicated that the business venture investment by family and relatives rose from 30% to 70%. That means they're owned by the family and relatives. The Jasani Malaysia International Survey report in 2002 also showed that 70% of family enterprise are SMEs, but 30% only run by the second and third generations. So we can see that we have a good established family enterprise in Malaysia, but we hardly attract the next generation to join in because due to the business natures, and usually the founders also send their kids to study abroad, okay, and when they come back, those the very small scale enterprise that we're going to shut down the business. So I used to review one of the book written by the Professor Yao, the shop on High Street, at home is petite capitalism. So they mention usually the family business owner are considered the petite capitalists. So how they're going to sustain is they own the family business, they work very hard, but they're hardly to pass the business or pass the baton to the next generations. They even they even say that they will pointed out actually family business is like the grinding machine. It's like the grinding machine, and they can make use of the means of productions. That means they will going to manage or allocate the resources and investment in a short time. That means they are very highly responsive to the resource allocation and the surplus values. But when the business gone through several generations, if they are not evolved into the larger corporations, they will started to sell off their business to another parties. So that is a sad thing also. The generational change, okay, the issue, the MNC partnership and Sino-Malay alliances, the public-private partnership is trigger the development of family SME in Malaysia. So as just now I mentioned, in Malaysia, the SME study, we have a micro, small and medium enterprise. So we can see the the transformation from the agricultural sectors to the knowledge intensive economics. We have a semiconductors industry, we have a E&E industries. So the SME manufacturing that rose between the 80s and 90s. So we can see our Malaysia firms, they create the joint ventures with foreign firms and fostering the knowledge intensive manufacturing. And the most Chinese dominated in this industry. But the sad thing is our our R&D expenditures at my time, okay, when I did my PhD in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, only 0.9. It is far behind if you compare with the US and other developed countries. So we still lack of sufficient R&D. But it's a good news is from 2006 to 2014, there is a big increment from 0.6 to 1.4. So that is a good thing also. So the SMEs in the food sector. So basically my research, my PhD research, I was dealing with comparison between food and plastic. But actually, I have a rubber industry as well because up to 55 case studies, we can't put it inside the all the thesis. Otherwise, the table will be very hard for me to draw out. So you can see the SMEs in the food sector, they are more conservative with the traditional technologies in rural area. Why? Because if you want to create a competition advantage, you can't disclose your family secrecy in making all those the traditional foods or others or beverage drinks, because the business secrecy is there. So mostly the food industry, they can sustain even from third and fourth generation. Usually they are selling all those the traditional food. Traditional food, for example, the biscuits, for example, like medicine and how to say, and the bakeries, this kind of a business. Usually in the food sector, you can see they can sustain well. It's because of the Tacit knowledge of the traditional knowledge can be transferred from one generation to another. So we can see the literature reviews on the family business. The family business research that I mentioned, they're mostly focused on the successions, but rarely we can see they are focused more into the innovations and the generational change. I even using the longitudinal design to compare the trigger events from one generation to another, the first, second, and the third generations, how the evolutions, how the development stage from one generation to another. So the stage of the family business in Malaysia, we can say the first generations, they are mainly paternalistic, where with a ad hoc management style. Okay? That means you can't blame the founder generation, because when they are established their family business during the first generations, they need to build up the trust. Okay, they need to build up the reputations within the local community. So as I mentioned earlier, family business is like the grinding machine. So they need to make use of the resource allocations, resource investment in order to keep the expenditures as minimal as possible in order to save costs. Okay, so when come to the second generations, okay, you have the kids, or else founders brothers or founders here to join in the business. There are more teams like sibling teams. It means more family participation that you can come during second generation. So during the second generation family business, you can see the feeling is more consensual compared to the first generation, more dictatorial. Okay, when they come to the third generation, they are more diversified, they are more consultative, so they will open up more business, more diversified. So the transition periods of family business, the first generation, they control the business decisions. So the second generation, the partner with the siblings to create the duty segregation. That means every family members, they have their own jobs and own participation. The third generations that allow cousin consortium. Cousin consortium, that means that when you up to the certain development stage or up to the third and fourth generations, so your cousin or your far relative, you start to join the business, and maybe you can sell up your business to another party which is not belongs to the family members as well. So this is the diagram. This is the transition models. The literature review, I will keep it short, okay, on innovation and enterprise development. So that I mentioned that just down the instant soup, that is a Campbell, okay. The Stratton, the researcher, they say that how the Campbell soup, the instant soup company, they will turn from the family business, a small family business, into a large proper managerial enterprise, because they adapt the knowledge from the business historian Alfred Chandler. So they say that every single of large corporations, they can go through the family business. They go through the small business. We not consider family business. We say that the small enterprise. If you want to evolve, if you manage your 3M properly in the companies, the management, marketing, and manufacturing, if you coordinate the administrations properly, efficiency, more how to say, more organized, so you can letting the family enjoy the incomes over 50 years. So, and just like I was mentioned also the knowledge apply sharing. So you need to apply the down to earth attitude. That means you need to make it closer the interpersonal relationship between people. Otherwise, you can't transfer as well in the organizations. You can't even know what are those factors that can trigger your companies, your developments in the family business. So my Professor Terence Gomez, okay, during 1999, he conducted his masterpiece on the Chinese business in Malaysia. So they provide the in-depth examination of eight large public listed family-owned Chinese firms. So we can see a lot of researchers actually they touch on the large firms, but we seldom see the local Malaysians, they focus on the case studies. Because if you're not focused on the case study, you can't trace out the evolution at all. You can't see that how this kind of small firms they can develop well when come to the public listed firm, how they are formed the public-private partnership with the governments, how to adapt to the country policy. For example, the new economic policy, the Look East policy, IOI, the import subsidy, ISI, import substitutions institute, and the other one is EOI, export-oriented institutions. So they how to adapt the policy well. So the Prof. Gomez also considered Chandler perspective, such as organization capabilities is important if you want to compare the business history. So this is a framework of my research. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to study the Tacit knowledge, management in the family business, no other research methods, that I think that is suitable for knowing the family business well. So you can't run away from the in-depth interviews or personal interviews or qualitative case study. You can use the quantitative case studies, but for me, if you've done the case studies, the in-depth case study, you can know the evolution very well. You can know the objective setting between the first and the third generation, the changes in the organization structures. So whether you can know what kind of the innovation strategies adapt in the organization structures in order to eliminate from the hierarchical organizations to the horizontal or vertical organizations. The innovation capacity, how the Tacit to codified knowledge, the R&D, the product development knowledge. How you're going to explore the innovation capacity is based on the products they are going to manufacture. From time to time, you can see the knowledge flow from one generation to another. Then we did mention about the strategy implementations. They're going to the joint they form a joint ventures with MNC. How they create the efficiency in the organizations by focus on organization capabilities, because every organizations are very unique in terms of the business natures, in terms of the knowledge transferring. So that how they are going to create the joint ventures with other with other business as well. So after the joint ventures with those multinational companies or other foreign companies, we can see that they learn a lot and they're trying to manufacture the good quality products in order to build up the trust. They probably say that these products actually made in Malaysia, and from they're building the trust in the local community. Later, they will export it, all the new products in overseas as well international market. So with a branding products, niche markets, and universal market shares. So even nowadays, we even heard about blue ocean strategies. That means the less competitive products, they can stand alone and survive in the blue oceans, adapt to the blue ocean strategies. They can create a competitive advantage as well. So this is the evolutions of the family firms. Okay, it's basically same as my the research, the framework. So the most important, we need to check the generational change, the objective, and the 3Ms. Okay, the introduction of the 3M by exploring the innovation capacity. So if you capture an opportunity of innovation capacity in the family business, you can know when come to the generational change, what type of the strategies they're going to implement. Okay, what kind of the new marketing plan and new talent management they can introduce in the family business. Because the most tedious part is from the Tacit to codified knowledge. We really need to have a mindset, with a good mindset, that the business they need to sustain. The business belongs to you. It's the time for you to see how you're going to adapt with our country's policy, our country's transformation plan, for example, in order to keep your business always in the front line. Okay, always in the front line. Okay, so when you're going to transfer the knowledge to the next, you can say the strategy implementations in the family business, they can show you the different development style. As you see, our Malaysia development models is influenced by the East Asian corporate models. For example, the chapel in Korean firms and the Zabaishu in the Japanese firm. That means this kind of the small enterprise or family enterprise, they dominate the whole industry in their each country. The financial system, for example, in Japan, Suzuki, Sumitomo, Mitsumi, this kind of big companies, actually they dominate. They quite dominated certain industry in their own country. So the most important part, when you transfer the knowledge from one to another, the mature of the enterprise development depends on the knowledge management, how the new generation actually they match their personal experience with the characteristic of the family business. So my sampling list, actually I have compared, okay, I have compared the large scale family enterprise between the first, second, and third generation to the medium and the small scale family enterprise. So you can see the small scale family enterprise, usually they just manufacture a single product. So they're targeting only the domestic market, okay, to promote Malaysia heritage, because we have a lot of Asian heritage values. Because if you, I quite happy to stay in Malaysia because of our heritage values also. Because of our heritage values, we try to manufacture the certain products. They are based on our knowledge, our formal knowledge, our ancestors. For example, I'm a Chinese, our ancestor from China. Surely they can give us some type of indigenous knowledge. So from that knowledge, we adapt to our Malaysians multi-ethnic society. We can produce all those of creativities. We not say products, we say that creativities. So later on, we have our own IP, intellectual property, and with our own trademarks. Okay, the medium scale enterprise that basically involvement in creating the golden brand that I mentioned earlier. They were trying to build up the reputation to sustain it from one generation to another. So they will focus on the golden brand. The large scale family enterprise is large publicity family firms. So you can see they have more diversified business. They have much bigger the manufacturing plants. Okay, so they recruited more workers. I think the most important part is the mediums. We need to focus more into the medium scale family enterprise, because when the small Skilled family enterprise, usually only the 5 to 6 workers. When they come to the medium skill, actually they need a lot of the resources, capital in order to build up the business. I think the government should focus more about the medium skill family enterprise, and for family business as well, they need to focus more on the second generations due to the knowledge management that I mentioned. The most tedious part is during the Tacit to explicit knowledge. So most happen in the second generations. So, okay, we discussed about the history of manufacturing and Tacit knowledge in Malaysia. So just now I was mentioning about this kind of country's policies. You can see the structural transformation, ISI. Just now I mentioned the EOI, export-oriented institutions, the ISI again, and how this kind of family business, they can dealing well in the Asian crisis. How, okay, we can say how they are going to to navigate, okay, sorry, to navigate a crisis with a right mindfulness, with a right actions, with a right steps, okay? So the right step is based on the previous research of a business historian, the Alpha Channel, we can say that the strategy follows structure is efficient. Okay, so innovation among the manufacturing sector, most innovating manufacturing firms in Malaysia were export dependent and younger. Okay, so if you check out with the productivity and investment climate survey, so we can see that the food processing and rubber and plastic were the highest in the radical innovations. That tends to manufacture more products due to the describe how to say, the descriptive technologies, rapid changes in the technology as well. So that tends to create more products in order to match the market demand. So the food processing and rubber and plastic become more competitive. If the technology changes very fast, so definitely they are more competitive. So if they are more competitive, if you want to stay alone in the market, you need to create more value-added productions. So this is the profile of the organizational changes in the plastic manufacturing. As you see in my slide, we have a lot of plastic enterprises, okay, which means they are very keen to provide cooperation ties or partnership with MNC in order to learn some things, in order to produce some things which is relevant in the market, which is relevant in the industries. Okay, so some of the family business, large corporations, for example, the SKP resources, they even send their children to study abroad in Nice Technical Institute in order to learn something creativity, some of the good knowledge from the Japanese in order to bring back to Malaysia, and then they try to manufacturing the products. For example, the Tizen that I mentioned in my thesis as well. Some of the biggest MNC, Tizen or Fairchild, ST Microelectronics, actually they are managed to cooperate well with these family enterprises. So we have a new managers. We're going to recruit more managers in order to manage the business well. So no one man show, no one size fits all. So we create more professional managers. More new equipments will be brought in, the plastic injections, to promote the MNC, partnerships in order to know the relevance of the market, what kind of the products you need to produce. So the histories of the family firms, and in food manufacturing is the other way around. How you create an opportunity by capturing the tacit knowledge in preparing the traditional foods. How you're going to transform, okay, the food packaging, for example, from ready to eat, ready to drinks, and ready to cook this kind of food preparations into the good packaging, then you export it well. So the new generations, the number of food products actually they're built based on the Tacit knowledge. To remain, you can see the difference between the main difference between the plastic and the food industry. The food industry, they are very tends to keep the Tacit knowledge as secret as possible. So in order to remain unique and remain competitive in the market, you know your competitors, you know your enemies, then you can sustain. So whereas the plastic manufacturing, you can say that some of the Tacit knowledge which is uh which is old, which is not relevant, they are not used in the second generation, because when they are send their children to study abroad, so those new technology, new knowledge, get it from the overseas, they were going to implement the better process in their organization. So sometimes the old Tacit knowledge that is not so relevant to be operated in the organization. So the new branches, you can say they are improving the brand recognitions to expand retailing opportunities by creating franchising. Okay. So this is the Tacit knowledge transformations in the plastic industries. Okay, the business history indicates the first generation in plastic production was strongly associated with closely held equity ownership. That means you need to learn the business history from the first generation to another, so you can know how they are going to develop their business well. So you can see the sustainability and the development of this family business actually is based on the ownership control. How the first generation, the founder, they're going to manage the business well. They're going to make it the resource allocations, as budgeting as possible. Okay, there are change of the leadership from first to second generation that I mentioned earlier. So you can see the organizations will become more consultative. You see the next generations, the third generations in the plastic industry, they are more keen to provide their own branding, even the customization service in order to create the new trends in the plastic industry. So the survival from one generation to another actually depends on how plastic SMEs focusing on value-added productions. So from middleman to wholesaler or MNC vendorship. So this kind of family businesses in the plastic production that I can see, they are very good in adapting the country policy. For example, the supplier vendors program. So they are going to cooperate with MNC in order to get more sales by manufacturing the products on time and with good technology and good equipment as well. So the impact of the development Tacit knowledge in the plastic production, you can say first, definitely they can lack of the technology transfer. The plant is very small and they are not keen to invest in the R&D. When they are coming to the second generations, you can say they are going to interpret the Tacit knowledge in line with a booming industry. For example, the semiconductor, the E&E. They even they're trying to convince the people the benefit of using plastic houseware. So I have one case studies about LH plus, Lihuat plastic. Yeah, when they are second generation, they're trying to cooperate with the Rubbermaid countries, the Rubbermaid, the biggest plastic houseware in US. They're trying to learn a lot. They're trying to educate the nations, the people, that if we produce those plastic houseware, we need to make sure they are not toxic. They are not toxic at all, in order to create more opportunities in the market. So they're going to study the design pattern of the Rubbermaid, and they're going to make use of the OEM experience, original equipment manufacturing from Rubbermaid, and they implement their own branded products. So this is the factors. This is the focus elements that we need to identify the knowledge from the MNCs that really they can contribute into your own products. So this is the things. This is the focus that we need to emphasize. So we can see the extending the innovation capacity to innovate the new products. So we can see most of the companies, my survey, family business, they can run very well even going through the third and second generations. Whereas the tacit knowledge transformation in the food productions is a bit different. Okay, the family SMEs in food productions, how they're going to sustain. You can see the small scale firms in the food sector, they can sustain even to third and fourth generation. For example, the Yu Yan San, the EYS, the traditional medicine. They try to turn the traditional medicine into the evidence-based medicine. Evidence-based medicine, evidence-based medications. So what they're going to do, they're going to cooperate with Oxford lecturers food products in order to do the R&D. You imagine the tacit knowledge is, the traditional medicine that is a tacit knowledge. But if you want to introduce to the whole market, you must do some of the R&D in order to give a substantial evidence to show this kind of a medicine is really works. So for your information, Yu Yan San, EYS in Malaysia has been survived up to the fourth and fifth generations. It's stated from 1867 years in Ipoh. Then they started out the business in other states, then in Singapore and China and US. Okay, so the family SME in food production, they are more focused on innovative products, creativities, the solely based on the inherited tacit knowledge over the generations. So the tacit knowledge in the food production, we can say they also promote a lot of collaborations, global supply chains, and with the government support in order to manufacturing Nanyang products. Okay, we can say the Nanyang product actually is Southeast Asia's heritage products. So how they are going to turn the traditional food manufacturing into our Malaysian branded products, and then they promote it in the overseas market. For some of the Chinese business, they also promote their own traditional products in the overseas Chinese markets due to the rising of the China popularity, Chinese food popularity, Asian food popularity in the West. Okay, so the family SME in the food production, they are extending the innovation capacity to create a niche market that I mentioned earlier, the blue ocean strategy. They're using a blue ocean strategy, those traditional food products, to create more R&D and developing more authentic Asian food. So we can see this is a tacit knowledge transformation in family SMEs from the small scale family business in plastic industry. They can expand it with the plastic houseware, the semiconductor industry, and then the plastic packaging. You see why they are so innovative, because of they make use of their tacit knowledge that inherited during the first technology, the first generation. They send their kids abroad, and when they come back, they were going to manage the business well by adapting the overseas experience, globalized experience. They can create something unique and successful, reputed products in Malaysia. Okay, we can see the tacit knowledge transformation in the food SMEs. You can see the next generation, they are make use of the traditional knowledge in making all those bakeries, beverage, and then they form a partnership with with a government. For example, I have one case studies about the weight, the instant noodles. With instant noodles, even their partner with Tesco, the retailing store in UK, in order to promote our Malaysians instant noodles products. Okay, they will send all those the wheat brands instant noodles product in the rack that display in the Tesco in UK. So we got our Malaysia also. We have our white coffee. White coffee is quite popular in Ipoh and a lot of the bakeries. And I have one article also mentioned about the King's Confectionery, the largest confectionery chain in Malaysia, how they're going to transfer the Tacit knowledge from Malaysia to Bangladesh. They have several branches in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. How they're going to train the workers, I mean the foreign workers from Bangladesh, by using the hand-on experience. When they're going back to their own country, they're going to establish their own bakery shop. So there is something interested to learn. Okay, my paper is successfully published in SECI teaching case. SECI teaching case. Okay, so we can say that we just how we mentioned earlier. Okay, if you have a good equipment, if you have a good machine technology, you can upgrade with a MNC requirement. You can make use of the OEM experience in order to produce high quality products. Not say that our products is very low value added, but if you implement well, the strategies follow structures, so we can create a lot of Malaysian brand in between the domestic market and the international market as well. So you can see the food manufacturing sector. They can in Malaysia, they involve from the traditional stores to the to the retail store. You can't run away from the R&Ds if you want to manage your business well through the collaboration with the MNC, and then you can get the rewards. You can achieve the awards recognitions in Malaysia as well as overseas countries. So for example, Golden Bowl Awards, good SMEs practices. If you build up the good reputation in Malaysia, the trust, then following the good, how to say, well established organization capabilities, okay, you recruit the better professional workers. Actually, it's really worse. You not say that the family business, they can't last even the third generation. Actually, it's a personal hindrance, personal factors. If you manage this kind of factors well, you still can sustain, even like the Japanese firms. If you appreciate the technology, or you appreciate the traditional knowledge, you even can sustain the firms up to the 46 generations that I mentioned earlier. The Honshu Onsen, the Hot Spring Hotel, you can sustain up to the 46 generations if you manage it well. If you choose the better peoples, if you choose the good successor in handling the business, you not say that you are the elder son, then you just only give it to the elderly son. No, you also must think about the daughter and other siblings as well. So you can see also the developments milestone in the family business, the family ownership. When the founders, they are very lenient, they are very kind enough, they are the next generations to create another business, in order to nurture the knowledge management interest within the organizations. So for example, the LH Plus, they also let their daughters to establish the plastic customizations companies to receive the orders from the premium chains gift industry also. So the conclusion from the plastic production perspective, from my own research, we say that sufficient autonomy. Okay, we need to have a sufficient autonomy. The efficiency of the tacit knowledge transformations also depends on the sufficient autonomy to perform their duties well in the plastic productions. So if you have enough autonomy, enough how to say, the ownership control, if you care about your family business, if you think about the new trend of the knowledge, that can capturing well in the market, even the plastic manufacturing firms, you can create an opportunity in the oligopoly market as well. You can compete with others. But the good thing is, I can see the plastic manufacturing firms in Malaysia, they are all practice the war of Sun Tzu. If you Google it, a war of Sun Tzu actually is a kind of a Chinese principle, Chinese management study to know the enemy, to know our competitors, and they know our friends also within the respective industries in order to create something different than others. For during the OEM or even the original design manufacturing, or even the OBM, original brand manufacturing. So commercializing the tacit knowledge is very important. You need to keeping the abreast with the technology advancement. I can see from the result from the plastic production perspective, they are the key factors to commercialize the tacit knowledge through increase the variety of plastic products. So the partnership collaborations, we can see the MNC partnership and OEM productions will bring the business opportunities. Okay, if you collaborated with an MNC, if you partner with an MNC, they can create more relevant OEM products in order to compete. So that is so much of evidence shown in my research, in my thesis. You can see once they perform a public-private partnership, the own family business started to grow in terms of the manufacturing plant and the machinery upgrading. So how about the food productions? Food production, you need to preserve the knowledge. In order for you to survive into from one generation to another, you need to control and preserve the production knowledge. You need to keep the production knowledge not so as secret as possible, but at least you need to capture an opportunity. You need to create an opportunity how to sell your products, how you market your products, in order to stay competitiveness in the market. Okay, the instituting the 3Ms, okay, and focusing the R&D in food technology is very important in order to make it differentiations and uniqueness to the proper growth. So the next generation also, they need to protect safeguard the secret recipe in order to employ more R&D staff by developing research ties with the tertiary institutions. For example, I have one case studies about sesame oil productions. Even one of the family firms in my study, they even established a cooperation ties with the sesame oil research center in the US and other countries in order to produce a healthy cooking oil. They even partner with the teams from USM in order to put it more focused on how to produce a Malaysian good practice, good brand of products. So, okay, thank you for listening. If you have any questions about my slides, I'm so sorry about today's presentation. I can't upload it from my own due to the technical discrepancies and the problem. So any question you can Roger me, or you email me at my email address ken_u@allianceyahoo.com. Thanks for listening, and thanks for the university in inviting me to give a talk today. Thank you.